All right, let's do this. My clock says 2:59. So welcome everyone to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number, what is this, 56 or 57? 56, I think. Yes, so you get to be part of today's experiment. I did actually have a couple topics that I was working on, but then I thought let's just actually. So Sifu Nick is here, and he's kind of the reason why I thought of doing this. For those of you who don't know, on the Jeet Kune Dialogues, my Friday show, we've been having a little bit of an audio loop problem. So Sifu Nick worked on that with me, and we seem to have solved it with just using the earbuds. So what I thought we would do today is, yes, you are Sifu Nick. So what I thought we would do today is a little bit of an experiment, and anybody who's been with me for a while, any of my students or what have you, would know that not all my experiments are successful. So what I thought we would do today is people who, I think the way Facebook works, if you and I are Facebook friends, then when you come on to the broadcast, I can bring you on camera. If not, you can go ahead and type into the comments, and I should be able to pick it up, and then we can talk about that. So on the ad for today's program, what I did was I said, if you've got something to ask, if you've got something to say, if you've got a story or something to relate, then we would go ahead and deal with that. So I'm looking at. So if you wanna come on, let's see, Nick. I should have talked to Sifu Nick about this before. So if you want to come on camera with me, actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just bring people on camera. That's what I'll do. So let's see if it. So Arnold Filipino is here, and Arnold I've known for just a little bit. He'll confirm that, and. This could be a very short experiment, or it could be a very long experiment, because if people have nothing to say, they got no stories to relate, and they just tuned in to hear me talking about something, then I'm sorry to disappoint you. I got no notes today. I do have some note paper in case somebody says something, right? So I will. I'll keep my eye on the comments. Let's see who's here. Audie's here. Hey, Paul. I think I saw. Let's see. Let me go back. Sean Foon gave us a little peek. Raymond Caliendo, Sifu Nick, Paris Elton, Jose Meyer, David Richardson, Audi Dale Barger, Bo Jackson. All right, so Sifu Nick says, let's talk about what I'm going to do in 2019. What should we expect? Well, there's one of the things that we will do very early in 2019 is to bring Nick Faruqi onto the Jeet Kune dialogues with me, because he and I have talked about a number of different things over the few months, and I like the way his mind works, and he's got some a little bit radical insights on the situation of Jeet Kune. So that's definitely one of the things that we're going to be doing in 2019. I'm also going to be publishing my a Jeet Kune business book that I wrote. But now, since I don't run a school, I think I'll publish it just as what's the best word? Not as a lark, but I might edit it just so it has a little bit more of a non-serious tone to it. So you can look for that in 2019 also. We are looking into upgrading, seriously upgrading the level of the show, the level of what it is that I bring to you, by obtaining sponsorship, by having paid subscribers and that kind of thing. Get to our own studio instead of doing stuff out of the house and what have you. A bunch of things, right? But it's like everything else, upgrading what you first started. And we've been doing these shows now for about a year, so it's about time. You can also go to, as a means of supporting the show, you can go over to jkdrebel.com. There you can subscribe to any of the shows, to the broadcast or to the Jeet Kune dialogues. But you can also take a look at the online store. So let's see, you go to jkdrebel.com, and then on the menu upstairs, I think it says Rebel Gear. Just click there, look around at what's available in the store. We're constantly going to be taking stuff down and putting other stuff up. So that's another thing that we'll talk about more in 2019 as things develop. This is akin to, when I opened up my school, and we call it a school, but really it was a warehouse. And this was in 1988. So debuting these shows, hey, Darryl White, debuting these shows is just like opening up in a warehouse. So you start at that level, and somebody asked me a question about that, what my beginnings were like. So we had a warehouse, and then ultimately we put a desk at the front door of the warehouse. And that made it like a really official school. And then we ran a phone in there. And back in those days, this is how long ago it was, there were still yellow pages. So we took out an ad in the yellow pages, and that's how the school started. So the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast kind of started not similarly, in that there wasn't even a plan for it. Carlos and I, he was here visiting in Miami, and we sat down in the South Miami boardroom and started talking on Facebook Live. I had never even seen Facebook Live myself, right? So if nobody's got questions or things to discuss or what have you, we can cut this short. And but I can tell you that in 2019 we will do it again, right? Because I'm very, very interested. As much as I like talking about Jeet Kune, and as much as I enjoy and love the Friday show, talking to other Jeet Kune people, I still think that there's a lot of discussion that we should be engaging in outside of the dialogues. So I think that if we have like a particular topic, and I have a guest on the broadcast, and we're going to discuss and have Q&A about a particular topic, a particular martial arts topic, then I think that would be an enhancement to the broadcast. So we'll still do the dialogues, but we might do a couple of changes on the broadcast. All right. Okay. So, all right. Well, Mr. Meyer, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific. So Jose Meyer says, how about real street fighting versus traditional training? So give me a context that that you're talking about, because that's a broad topic. So if you put another comment in there, Jose, about real street fighting versus traditional training. I mean, is there a question there? Maybe, maybe not. World of Bruce Lee in Hollywood. No, Dale, I never got to it, but you sent me, I think you sent me a message. I saw it just late last night when I came in from class, about Norman, I don't know if you say Boreen or Borine's book. And I had never seen that book. I recognized his name, but I had never seen his book, and so I don't have a copy of it. So I couldn't really tell you much about it. But no, I never did get out to the world of Bruce Lee. Okay, Mr. Meyer says traditional seems not to really prepare you for real life situations. I don't know that I will agree with you on that, Mr. Meyer, and here's why. I know people who have trained in nothing but traditional Japanese or traditional Okinawan karate, and I know that they have defended themselves, right, in real life situations. Now, that's not to say that everybody who trains, see, I have a basic thing. It's never the art. It's always the artist, right? You can't just say traditional karate doesn't work. That's not true. Traditional karate works. If it didn't work, then it means that before whatever it is that we think today is the thing that works, before that thing came along. So whether you want to say it's Krav Maga, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's MMA, it's Muay Thai, any of the topical popular things, right? If you want to say that that's what works and traditional martial art doesn't work, before all those things were popular, so let's say in the 1960s, when traditional karate was mainstream in terms of popularity, what were people using to defend themselves? So I don't think it's correct to use a blanket statement. It's always the art. I talked about Joe Rogan had what's his name, the guy from the University of Portland. I can't remember his name. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Geez. Anyhow, he's a philosophy professor, and he's a martial artist. He trains jiu-jitsu and what have you with Matt Thornton and them. Gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. Anyhow, and he talked about a guy that he had trained with in New York. And the guy he was talking about never trained in jiu-jitsu or what have you. And he said he saw that guy fight for real. So right there is evidence that it's the artist, it's the practitioner of the art. It's not just, I don't agree with a blanket statement that traditional training does not prepare you for street fighting. It's all in how you train it. It's all in how you train it. Listen to Burt Richardson. And Burt Richardson has said quite a number of times how you see what you might say is a useless technique, and that's something we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks also. The whole reject what is useless concept. And you'll see something from the traditional art, and it's only when you see how it's really applied that you realize that it has validity in the real life scenario. Okay, so Darryl White wants to know if Sifu and Asano will ever come back to South Florida. Let's see, how should I answer this? No, I don't think so, Darryl. We will have to continue to go up to, what's Jacksonville, Northern Florida or Central Florida? I think that's Jackson. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that he'll come back to South Florida. Peter Bogosian, thank you, Sifu Nick. That's who it is, right? And again, guys, let me make sure you understand this, right? I might have a difference of opinion with Peter Bogosian and the way that, in my opinion, he decries traditional martial art and what have you. I even have a difference of opinion with Bruce Lee over kata, right? But I understand the context in which they say what they say, right? So it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's just a matter of different opinion. Audi says to look up King Dragon on Facebook. Okay, I will. I'll make a note. I'll make a note right now, Audi. Okay. Mr. Meyer says, I've had both, and once you get into more combat style, there are many important aspects missing from traditional. That's true. That you're quite right. And that's why I say it's all in the way that it's trained, right? There are people, when I was in Venezuela, back before when Venezuela was worth visiting, I went to a Shotokan school in Venezuela, and let me tell you, the way they trained Shotokan was completely different to the way that we train Shotokan in Barbados, right? So again, it's the way it's trained. You can take whatever it is that you're doing, and if you decide, I've got to find a way to make my traditional techniques work in the street, yeah, you'll probably end up modifying some of the stuff. But I know that there are people who have gone even more deeply into their traditional art to discover the so-called hidden techniques that have real life street application. All right. Derek Chin asks, what's the future of Jeet Kune? So many different factions, groups, teachers, everything from simple, fast, direct to concepts to get into. Well, yep, I agree, Derek. It is often the butt of many jokes, and that is too bad. Like Chris Kent said it really well, that there has never been a general consensus on what it is that actually constitutes Jeet Kune. What I've said is that I think Jeet Kune is second to the experiment that is the United States of America. I think that the Jeet Kune is probably the next greatest historical experiment, in that we all have to make room for the differences of opinion and, let's say, the differences of approach to Jeet Kune. My only concern is this: whoever it is that has a particular approach to Jeet Kune, if they're being totally honest with themselves and with the people that they're seeking to influence, I got no problem with them, right? But it's when one group wants to say, oh, well, this group sucks because this and because that, then I start to have a problem. So we have to make room in our minds, and we got to make room in our hearts for those who might have somewhat of a different approach. There's I'll tell a really bad story, or I'll tell a bad version of it, but there's a thing about blind people and touching an elephant. And so one person touches the tail, and the other person maybe touches a leg, and the other person touches a trunk. And so everybody has a different idea as to what an elephant feels like or what it might look like. And so over the years, for whatever reasons, if you want a much more expert breakdown of the Jeet Kune identity crisis, two things. One of them is self-serving. Go to the YouTube and check the Jeet Kune Dialogues episodes with Chris Kent, number 35 and 35A. If you want a Jeet Kune legend to tell you about the disparity in JKD, go listen to Chris Kent. And then the second one is buy Masters Magazine, Spring 2019. Look it up. It's an EM3 video. You can find a link for it, I think, on Chris's Jeet Kune Fellowship site on Facebook. Get that so that you can get access to his article on the Jeet Kune identity crisis. Right. So the future, there is a bright future. Don't get me wrong, Derek. There is a bright future for Jeet Kune. However, it's going to take a goddamn heck of a job. It's going to take a lot of work. But here's why I say there's a bright future. There's still articles and look, yesterday on the Daily Wire, of all places, right, a conservative website, there's a thing referencing Bruce Lee about nunchaku and what have you, right? This is 45 years after C. Joe Bruce has passed away. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think as long as there are people like us, all of us involved in what we do here on Facebook every week, there's always going to be an appetite for Jeet Kune. But it's going to take a supreme effort to get stuff out there. I forget who it was, but he made a very good point, and I hate that I can't remember his name, but he made a very good point that it's a huge irony that the most popular martial artist, let's say of all time, we'll just use that catchphrase, right? That Bruce Lee continues to be the most popular martial artist of all time, and there's still this lack of consensus, or this like it was just said here, that his art is the butt of many jokes. That's kind of ridiculous, and we will do something about that. Baron Shepard says, I think a lot of instructors have their own ideas about a violent encounter goes down. Yeah, I mean, well, a guy who fights every day is going to have a very different idea about from the guy who fights every once in a while. So yeah, a lot of instructors will have their own ideas. But so I'm not a guy that's known for living the hard life. Like I sometimes I wish that I could say, you know, that that Jeet Kune saved me from a life in the ghetto or what have you. But that's not true. I grew up in Barbados. Barbados doesn't know much for being violent and what have you. So I'm not going to go tell people, oh man, you know, I got all this street experience and what have you. I'm going to listen to somebody and I'm going to learn from somebody who has that experience that I don't have, right? And sometimes people let their ego get in the way and they want to be, as Chris Kent will say, you know, it's about real estate. So it's like, if I have a school, I want everybody to come to my school, right? So I'm gonna talk about stuff that I know nothing about. That's not, no, that lacks integrity. So what you know, you know. What you don't know, you go out and you get the knowledge. Bruce Lee said, Jeet Kune is about discovering the cause of your own ignorance. Jeet Kune is about discovering the cause of why you don't know. So if you don't know, you go out and you get that that knowledge. All right. Hey, Mr. John Miller. All right. So let's see if there's, did I miss anything? You know, so this is actually one of the things, right? I think you guys would agree with me. If you're talking about online podcasts, right? Joe Rogan is probably the most popular out there. And everybody knows Joe has his lieutenant, Jamie Vernon, who works the controls and what have you. Picture a day when this, when the Jeet Kune dialogues or even the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast is in a setup similar to that. It'll never be identical, right? Right. But imagine that. We will blow up this Jeet Kune thing, right? And put it back where it used to be, because some of you guys might be too young to know this, right? But this is my opinion, and feel free to disagree with me. But there was a magazine called Inside Kung Fu. Inside Kung Fu, I would say its heyday was probably the early 80s into the mid 90s or so, because everything changed in 93 when Royce Gracie beat everybody in UFC 1. That's another thing that we have to admit is a reality. Inside Kung Fu pretty much made its name on Jeet Kune and Filipino martial arts. Check it out if you think. There's I think it's ma-magazines.com. If you doubt my word, right? And somebody go do this and prove me wrong if I'm wrong. Look at all of the covers of Inside Kung Fu magazine, and you tell me, right, how much stuff there was about Jeet Kune and about Filipino martial arts during that decade or so, right? Again, some of you guys are too old, but if you go back to, there was Black Belt magazine had two other publications. O'Hara had three publications: Black Belt, Karate Illustrated, and Fighting Stars. See if you can find at that same website. We're talking now maybe 1970, definitely 1977, because I got a mental image of some magazine covers from 1977. And you look at those magazine covers. I'll tell you another thing. There was a time when in the magazines, on the pages where they had martial art equipment for sale, there used to be sections on Jeet Kune. There were sections of these martial art catalogs and it was a Jeet Kune section. And that's where you'd find the kick shields, and you'd find the focus mitts, and you'd find the Kali sticks, and you'd find, I mean, there was even a point where you could get official in Asano Academy where and what have you. So you guys may not be aware that there was a time when Jeet Kune dominated. Now, I'm not saying that Jeet Kune has to dominate again because it's the best thing out there or what have you. Everybody likes what it is that they like, right? I said before, we got to make room, not just for the I hate to use the word, but let's say the differences, right, in Jeet Kune. But of course, we got to make room for other martial art methods. Come on, right? The world's big enough for that. But my thing is Jeet Kune more so than anything else, right? Baron Shepard says he remembers the ad for the tracks. Yeah, of course. There's a ton of stuff, right? But it's going to take a supreme effort from all of all of us guys, right? So, Mr. Meyer, I will talk with you. The status of Richard Bustillo and Burt Richardson. David, I'm not sure what you mean by the status of Richard Bustillo. I mean, Sifu Bustillo passed away a few years ago. So unless you're talking about the IMB Academy, which is still up and running, you can just go to, I'm pretty sure it's imbacademy.com. And Burt Richardson, Burt's around and doing very well. I'll do a self-serving thing again. Burt was one of my early guests on the Jeet Kune dialogue. So again, go to the YouTube and do a search for, as a matter of fact, let me see. So this is where Jamie Vernon would come in handy. He could pull up the stuff for me. I'll tell you what episode Burt was on. Jeet Kune dialogues. It was episode number 11. David, your namesake, Burton Richardson, episode 11 of the Jeet Kune dialogues. And Burt's on Facebook pretty often too, so you can look him up there, or just look him up at jkdunlimited.com. All right. Yeah, so Lee Welch says that Asian World. I've been to Asian World when I used to hang out in Philly. Yeah, they're, man. Okay, I'll have to get back to them and take a look at that aisle. David says also that Bruce Lee was possibly the first MMA fighter ahead of his time. Yeah, well, there's not really any that's not an argument, right? Let's see. William Sheffer says, what's your thoughts on jiu-jitsu/wrestling for self-defense? Does it complement JKD? Well, I'll answer it this way, William. Jiu-jitsu and wrestling are grappling arts, right? Jeet Kune has a thing called a training guideline, right? Or a concept called the 4 ranges of combat, right? Kicking, punching, trapping, grappling. So jiu-jitsu and wrestling will definitely complement Jeet Kune. Because here's the thing. Let's say one guy likes to use grappling for self-defense, and he comes up against another guy who likes to use, we'll call it striking, right? We'll use MMA vernacular. And the other guy likes striking. Larry Hartzell used to say, right? Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. Larry Hartzell used to preach that when it came to grappling, it was all about who could maintain their fighting range. So if the grappler has methods for getting past the, you know what you could, who makes a good reference? Sifu and Asano in the episode of Way of the Warrior, right? In the Kung Fu episode, he says, he makes a comment where he says something like, when the kicking and punching range is breached, and you get past it pretty quickly, right? So it really is who's able to maintain the range if you're talking about grappling versus striking, right? But in terms of whether or not jiu-jitsu and wrestling would complement JKD, yeah. You want to see good examples of that? Again, self-serving, right? Listen to episode number, this was when I did the Minnesotan Vikings series. So episode number 21 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues with Eric Paulson, and episode number 22 with Greg Nelson. If you want to see we'll call it picture perfect examples of the integration of grappling with Jeet Kune. As some people will say, what the heck do you think CSW is? Right? Other than Eric Paulson's expression of Jeet Kune, with an enormous helping of grappling technique. Right? So yes, for sure. Okay. Randy Ciordia says, Ciordia. Yeah, I did say it right. Oh my God. Right. Yeah. So Randy, I think Randy's making the point that, see, here's what happens sometimes, right? It's like, so in 93, when Royce Gracie beat everybody, the world caught on fire and thought Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the best thing because this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guy, he just beat everybody. So that means that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the best. No, it means that on that night, Royce Gracie was the best prepared for whoever it is that he went up. Other people were not as well prepared to go up against him, and that's why he came out on top. Because if Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the best, then that means nobody, that means Royce Gracie would never have been beaten by anybody. You see what I'm saying? So it's never the art. It's always the artist. It's always the practitioner. So you don't have to be the best grappler in the world in order to use grappling against a grappler. You don't, right? You do have to train it if you're going to be well-rounded. That's the thing. You can't, you can't, oh, well, my sidekick will keep anybody off. All right. No, because there are people who train to grab sidekicks, right? So if you're going to be well-rounded, you have to take a look at everything. But that doesn't mean that because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like the most popular thing that you've got to go and become a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you want to, fine, right? If you've got the time and the means and the resources and the energy and whatever to train everything, then that's what you do. We all know of a particular martial art instructor, a particular Jeet Kune guy, whose lifestyle is just revolves around that, being able to train extensively in everything that he likes. His name is Dan Asano. Now, of course, his training, his cross training, let's call it, in a bunch of different things, he catches flack because of that, because people think that somehow he is indirectly saying that that cross training in multiple arts is Jeet Kune, and then that kind of bleeds into the whole, there are 26 different arts. I saw something on Quora early this morning where a guy was answering a question about Jeet Kune and telling somebody else that Bruce Lee created Jeet Kune after studying 9 different arts. And I'm thinking, where the hell did he get that from? Right? Anyhow, not to get off the point, right? So should weapons be considered? Yeah, so Sifu Nick, I know that in your breakdown, I'm pretty sure this is where I first saw that, that weapons should be considered the 5th range. I don't see I don't see there being any problem with that. I mean, again, right, Chris and I talked a little bit about, and this is another topic that will be coming up, so you guys will have the preview of it here. Liberate yourself from classical Jeet Kune, right? So Randy Ciordia and Sifu Nick, I think these are both Chicago guys, so that's probably why they have a similar opinion, right? That JKD's 5th range is firearms and projectiles, right? Yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't call it a range. Look, here's what I did with the whole range thing, right? When I realized that people sometimes confuse range to mean distance between you and the opponent, or distance from the opponent. And so there's this idea that kicking range is the longest range away from the opponent. And then punching range is inside of kicking. And then trapping, because now you can use the elbow and what have you, that trapping range is inside of punching range, and then grappling range is inside of trapping or right next to trapping or what have you. And I realized that people were thinking that range meant distance away from the opponent. So my clarification of that is I always teach that Bruce Lee's original terminology is the 4 ranges of combat. But I teach that as the 4 skills of empty-handed combat. And those 4 skills of empty-handed combat can be applied at 3 ranges: long, middle, and close quarter. So that's my approach to clarifying the idea of range, right? Sifu Nick and I will definitely get into this next month, because he's going to be, he might even be my first guest in January on the Jeet Kune dialogues, right? There is no such thing as classical JKD. That is a contradiction of Bruce Lee JKD. So here's the thing, Mr. Meyer. If there is no such thing as classical Jeet Kune, then you were not around, and you may not be aware that there used to be inside Kung Fu, there used to be a column written by none other than Ted Wong, and its title was Classical Jeet Kune. But now, don't get me wrong. As my senior, Cass Magda, he cleared this up for me. The reason why Sifu Ted Wong used the adjective classical was because he didn't mean it the way we talk about classical martial arts, you know, like the traditional martial arts, like Bruce Lee wanting to liberate, wanting us to liberate ourselves from the, you know, what did it say, in memory of the class of the once fluid man, right? Whatever, by the classical mess. Ted Wong's use of the adjective classical was to refer to Bruce Lee and his art as works of art. So when we talk about Mozart and Beethoven and those guys, their music is referred to as classical music, and it's considered works of art. Shakespeare is classical, is classic, and that was what Ted Wong meant by classical Jeet Kune. And that's what I mean by classical Jeet Kune also, Mr. Meyer, right? Audi says most of his training came from Advincula. Oh yeah, he was both Filipino martial arts and Okinawan Ishinryu, I think, right? Again, if you guys had been around, you would remember Panther Productions, and Arsenio J. Advincula had two series at Panther Productions, one on Eskrima, and then the other one, I think, on Ishinryu Karate, right? Okay, so wouldn't classical just refer to the first 3 forms, Wing Chun, boxing? Yeah, in a way, Derek John Miller. Yes, I could agree with that. Is there a method to get your mind and body into flow state for JKD? Yeah, man, show up for class, right? Show up for class, and yeah, and look, here's the thing. Somebody just asked me this on Quora also. How, I forget the question, but I think it had something to do with how to make training more efficient. Well, you make training more efficient by being more focused, right? You don't go to class and you're thinking about a whole bunch of other things that you should not be thinking about when you're there. You're there to train. And one of the things that you should think of is how much more knowledge or how much new knowledge can I leave this training session with that I didn't have 60 minutes ago when I got here, right? So, you know, I'm not going to be able to tell you about, you know, like some specific esoteric method to get your mind and body into flow state for JKD. Let me tell you, right? I told my students just last night, you can tell who's really into it. So look, let me share something with you. So we have a running joke, right? Because like it or not, Filipino martial arts and Jeet Kune seem to be intertwined, right? And there are other methods out there that, in order to, you know, we talked earlier about trying to keep your students. Well, if other people are doing different things out there and your art actually does not have these different things that are popular, you might just have to borrow from something else. So a lot of people have borrowed the Filipino martial arts. So we make fun of them. We say that they do the sticks, which is actually a phrase that I have heard them use, right? But we don't do the sticks. We train Filipino Kali. So for us, you pick up the stick and you're in the state of flow if you really know what you're doing. Here's another time that you get into the state of flow. You get into the state of flow as soon as, whether you're teaching the class or you're participating in the class, you get into the state of flow as soon as the instructor calls the group to attention. Bang. Because that's what you're there for. Right? Okay, enough on that. I'm probably missing some comments because I'm trying to look down at the screen and then look into to the camera at the same time. So guys, thanks, Sifu Nick. Yeah, I'm having a good time, but my phone's gonna run out of a battery in about 10 minutes. So, but we'll keep this going for as long as we can. All right, I think I missed somebody's comment here. And I don't, all right, let me see if I can find it. I'll probably disconnect the whole bloody thing when I do this. Give me a sec, guys. Yep, one day I'll have an assistant. Anyhow, I don't get, let's see if I can get it from here. This is fun. Okay, so Bruce Lee did not want to confine JKD, yet he had to do, I think you mean he had to do so to help people learn and understand. Well, yeah, you know, look, Burt Richardson says, look, one of the best ways to, I'll paraphrase what Burt says. One of the best ways to appreciate freedom is to not have freedom at some point, right? So Bruce Lee wanted people to be free in their training. But here's the thing, right? If people have no idea whether or not they are encumbered, then they're not going to have an appreciation for being unencumbered. So you can't say, okay, well, look, I teach Jeet Kune. Jeet Kune is all about freedom. So when we come to class, we're just going to do whatever it is. That's a recipe for disaster. There has to be structure. And if you think, right, if you think that Bruce Lee, with all his talk about freedom and what have you, had no structure, then you got to take a look at this book. There is stuff in here about lesson plans, like a 13-lesson curriculum and what have you. There's stuff in here. Remember that Chris Kent, again, self-serving, go to the YouTube and check episodes 35 and 35A of the Jeet Kune dialogues, right? To paraphrase Ben Shapiro, I'm doing all this work for you guys, right? What was I telling you? I should never get myself off track. You've got to have structure. And there was a time when Bruce Lee was entertaining the thought of opening up a chain of Kung Fu schools. And so he knew what had to be done in order to promote the art. But then for whatever reason, I wasn't there, so I can't speak for him. But for whatever reason, as time went by, he shelved that idea of having a chain of schools. And then there's the famous quote about, it's too, you know, I've closed all the schools. It's too easy for the students to think of the agenda as the truth and the syllabus as the way and what have you, right? So, but Mr. Meyer, you and I are going to have to talk off camera and work out some stuff, right? Okay, let's see if there's anything else here. Yep. Okay. Yes. Dale's saying, okay. So, Lee Welch says, what's your take on these articles found in my copy of Inside Kung Fu? sorry, Suli, the screen keeps shifting, so okay, so two things I'm going to try to deal with here. $300 or more for Dan and Asano's Art and Philosophy book. Yeah, here's what you guys should do. You guys, everybody, listen to this, right? And spread the word, right? Spread the word. Everybody who would love to have Dan and Asano's, what is it, 4 or 5 books, right? Petition Sean Foon and find out if Sean Foon can help us with that, right? I don't know. I'm not saying that he can, but Sean Foon would definitely be a guy that you could talk to, right? And Sean knows why I'm saying that. I have seen it for less than $300, Derek John Miller. Maybe eBay. All right, Suli, I'm gonna try to find. So, man. Okay, so the let me see if I can find it. But I think what Suli was asking was a Paul Vunak article about the 26 arts of Jeet Kune or something, right? I don't want to do a hatchet job on it, so I can tell you this: through Mark Rendon, I am in touch with Paul Vunak, but he's asked me to wait until next year or until after Christmas, so we'll make that next year. So maybe we'll have Paul explain that article, because I remember that article. It's a famous article also about the 27th. But again, and I hate to keep, well, I don't hate to, but you know, Chris is, I hope Chris doesn't get upset with me. But I think on Sifu Chris's website, which is ckjkd.com, go over there and do a search for the 26 arts, because he wrote a blog post or an article on that 26 art thing also, right? So I think you can find it there. Biblio has, man, $126 for, you know, hey, some people would say that being old sucks, but being old does not suck when it comes to obtaining Dan and Asano's books. I have 3 copies of the Art and Philosophy book, right? And this one, right, as you can see, is not yet in pieces, but there's the crack in the binding. Then there's another one that's in 2 halves, and then the third one dates back to 1983, which was an I'm trying to show off. It was do a giveaway. I don't think so, Sifu Nick, because the other 2 are working models, and then the 1983 one, that's the one that has Sifu Dan's autograph in it. So no. All right. So Wayne asked, when will you be writing your own book? So he probably didn't hear when I said that the Jeet Kune business book that I had written will be released next year. I'll probably have to change the title of it somewhat, and it's gonna be released just as something for guys to see, to take a historical insight into the life of a professional Jeet Kune. Josh Dillamira said he was in first grade in '83. Josh, I was a child prodigy, right? In 1983, I was only about you know, like 12 years old when I went out to California to hang out with Dan and Asano. All right, so I feel you. You guys wouldn't. Josh I talked about the warehouse in 1988. That's where Josh De La Milera trained with me. All right, William Sheffer, one last question. Yeah, I think we will make this the last question. Do you think learning an instrument will benefit training martial arts and vice versa? I'm getting into guitar. I'm finding that my practice in BJJ has helped me. Okay, William Sheffer, here's what you got to do. You got to go to last Friday's Jeet Kune dialogue, episode number 38 with Mark Sells. Okay, Mark Sells is a professional musician, right? Mark is a blues guitarist. Go listen to that and hear about the connection between music and martial art, right? Now, you can hear about it. Actually, if you want, send me what do you call it? Direct message or whatever, William, and I can send you a copy of an article that I wrote where, and Mark and I talk about this on the podcast, so you can find it there also. But it was a thing that I wrote about jazz versus Jeet Kune, right? So yeah, learning an instrument for sure. Remember this, right? In Southeast Asia, music and martial art go hand in hand. That's why, right, rhythm and cadence for one thing. That's why there's a lot of percussion use in the Filipino Kali, in the Pencak Silat. As a matter of fact, a couple months ago when Burt was in Japan, I think it was, he did, he shot a video. So look it up on Burt's Facebook page, and he played some of the not Kulintang, it's the northern Filipino music, and he did some shadow boxing, right? So yeah, so music and martial art, definitely. Bruce Lee broke that barrier in the early days. We work out to Santana, 1969 Santana. We work out to that stuff all the time. And I'll confess, I'll say this and then we'll wrap this up. I'll confess, because of the beats, we work out to Snoop Dogg, right? In class sometimes. Not because of the language, but because of the beats, right? All right, okay, so guys, thanks very much for hanging out with me over the past half an hour or so. Sifu Nick says the impromptu conversation went well. Yeah, I think we had a good time. Like I said, in 2019, we're going to try our best through sponsorship and subscription and what have you from you guys. If you like what we're doing for Jeet Kune, then feel free to become a paid subscriber or whatever. But all of that will be debuting in 2019, and we will take it from there. All right, so that's it. On Friday, I'm going to be dialoguing at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Eastern time with Rob Lee. And Rob Lee, we've not met personally, but Rob Lee is another one of the deep thinkers, one of the deep Jeet Kune thinkers. So if you guys can tune in 5 p.m. on Friday for the Jeet Kune dialogues, right? Go to I Love Jeet Kune, where volume 1 of the quick skills is still available, and check out the work in progress website at jkdrebel.com. Okay, that's it for today. You guys take care. Have a great one. Everybody, Merry Christmas, because I probably won't talk to you until then. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Everybody enjoy yourselves. Take care.